Ito ang simula ng isang pagpapalakas ng ating parokya. Napapalakasin natin ang ating pamilya. Kayo tinawag, kayo inimbita. Bakit? By the nature of your own groups, nakasentro kayo sa pamilya. Lahat yan ang ating direksyon ay to have a strong family. Malakas ang pamilya, malakas ang komunidad. At kapag malakas ang komunidad, malakas ang parokya. At kapag malakas ang parokya, tutulong ito sa moral nation building sa atin.
As we welcome PPAP not just in this parish but in our vicariate, ito lang po hiling ko sa inyo. Keep on going. Tuloy niyo lang po. Continue what you have started. Sabi nga ni Father Ernie kanina, namunga yung sinimulan ninyo. Sana po mas lalo pang mamunga. We also have families who are in dire need. We have couples who are undergoing through a lot of struggles. Please teach us how to accompany them. On behalf of the Vicariate of San Martin de Porres, we congratulate PPAP and we welcome it as one of the programs for the pastoral care of our communities in the Vicariate. Muli po!
Congratulations sa Vicariate ng San Martin de Porres for initiating this wonderful apostolate ministry of accompanying people. I understand this program has been introduced to several of the parishes. I hope that by the end of the year or by next year, we will be able to multiply our presence not just in this particular vicariate, but that you may be able to bring the message, this good news, this joyful message of restoring people back to their own condition of true health and true community by this program. I hope that from there you will have the other two vicariates of the Parañaque City, that is the Vicariate of San Antonio de Padua and the Vicariate of Santa Rita de Casia. And from there, move on to Las Piñas and Muntinlupa. And from there, we hope to be able to bring that good news, this program, to many other dioceses. My dear priests, my dear, especially our servant leaders, our parish priests, I encourage you to introduce this program to your parishes, because I think this will be one way of also bringing together the many different commissions to work together, because I think it should involve all the other commissions to work together so that this program may find its fruitfulness in bringing together the community of pastoral workers in your parish. And please encourage your people, because I'm sure that this is a work of God. This is something that the Spirit would want us to develop in our parishes. Maraming salamat po, and this is your Bishop, Bishop Jess, encouraging you, keep up the good work.
And what I would like to share with you tonight will be our journey, in these 5 years of our themes, and at the same time, at the end, to be able to present to you our suggested theme for this year. So as we have mentioned, so the Parish Pastoral Accompanying Program has already been journeying in this past 5 years, since 2017 until this year. So going back now in history, the first year of our PPAP, if I got it right, sharing now with Malu and June, no, the first year was the beginning. And it was practically themed, or the main objective was to gathering of workers for the vineyard. So this was the year when we met with different organizations and charismatic groups in our parish to introduce our Parish Pastoral Accompanying Program, hoping to get volunteers to do this mission with us. And it is very important, no, in itong 2017 na to, because we found that there is indeed a lot of fruitfulness, a lot of harvest to be collected among our families. Fruitfulness in the sense na, there are a lot of families who are really budding forth, families who are really processing or talagang really expanding and trying to reach out. But at the same time, dahil hindi na nagagalaw itong mga harvest nito, meron din mga bunga na talagang nabubulok, na overripe in the sense of the families, wherein there are a lot of families na may mga potentials, no, in order to be able to bring out, no, the best in them, to be able to share to other people and to share their fruitfulness so that other people may live. So ito ay kuminsan din natin nakikita, sapagkat sometimes the problem is nagfo-focus lang tayo with our own particular family, sa needs ko, sa needs ng family namin, or sometimes kuminsan nalilimit tayo sa sarili nating mga barkada, na grupo ko to, charismatic group ko ito, organization ko ito, that we fail to reach out, no, to other families and other fruits that could be harvested, no, for the common gift of all. So that's why in this first year, ng 2017 na to, since it was just the beginning, there was no really Bible verse that was used, no, as a theme, no, in this year, but the thing that was used as a guide word was the word vineyard, because we believe that our mission was the vineyard of God, and we need to gather workers to start the program. So it's more of seeing the need of the families, seeing the goodness of the families. So it's about time that we also maximize, no, our families for the spread of the kingdom. And reflecting on this particular work that you have done in 2017, it could have been, no, sinasabi nga natin, that the reading could have been based from Matthew 21 to 16 about the parable of the workers in the vineyard. Yun nga, the harvest is great, but the laborers are few. And we have seen in your experience in 2017 how little by little, no, families were joining in this PPAP. Parishes by parishes, vicariates, no, joining in. So we are like the workers, no, in the parable of the vineyard, wherein some were called, no, at 9 o'clock in the morning, some 12 o'clock noon, some 3 p.m., some even at 5 p.m. Pero all of us are being called by the Lord in order to be able to give attention, no, to the families that need harvesting and the families that need also to be taken care of and to be maximized. No, and that is indeed the first year wherein we try to gather workers for the vineyard of the Lord. In 2018, on the second year, now that we have gathered workers to work for the vineyard, the theme that was chosen on that year was families glowing in the dark. So we were able to gather not only individual volunteers, but families as such, no, as well. And most of which also some of these workers in the vineyard were also broken families as they remain broken, quote unquote, no, and remain in the PPAP. But from this darkness that they experienced, they slowly glowed in the dark. Meaning to say, as workers in the vineyard, we are not workers in the vineyard kasi magaling na tayo. Kasi we are perfect. Because our families are really intact. Or because our families are really able to share out something to other people. Pero as workers in the vineyard, we are all but sinners. We are all but also weak people. And so much so that we join in this vineyard because we also want also to profit also from the goodness and the kindness of God, and also to the work and labor of other workers, other families joining us in that ministry. And indeed, the theme itself, families glowing in the dark, would like to spell out to us that indeed in the dark moments, no, of our world, in the challenging moments, no, wherein the families are being challenged, like even today, no, with this absolute divorce bill that is being passed on, no, by Congress, still we could see amidst this darkness or these dark moments or culture of death that is being applied on the families, there are certain families who still shine out, no, to guide us and to give us hope and to give us joy. I remember speaking of this glowing in the dark thing. No, usually when we speak of this glow in the dark, we speak about the toys no being given no sometimes to children. No, ito yung mga dinidikit no ng mga luminous items, ng mga stars, mga cartoon characters no on the walls, on the ceilings of the rooms of our children and so on. Because even I myself, nung malita ko, nagkaroon din kami ng mga ganyan. And I remember when I was already a few years back no in the Don Bosco School of Theology, we had a Chinese student, no, and he's a diocesan, and he was staying with us. He's a good artist in a sense, and one time, no, he invited me to his room, and I was surprised because in his room he pasted a lot of these glow in the dark mga stars no in the ceiling of the room. So sabi ko sa sarili ko, nako, paano aalisin ito pag lumipat itong Chinese brother na ito. Pero he was sharing with the story. Kasi being a foreigner here in the Philippines, he always felt homesick. Kasi talagang mama's boy siya. Youngest siya in the family of 5 sisters. Gano'n siya lang yung lalaki, bunso pa siya. So laging naalala niya yung family niya. And whenever he looked at the stars, no, pag nahiga na siya sa kama niya, he would always remember the faces no, of his parents and his siblings. Kumbaga, it gives him a certain consolation, it gives him a certain direction, it gives him a certain joy. No, na in the darkness of the night, in the darkness of his life, nakikita pa rin niya, may mga stars pa rin na gumagabay sa kanya at magbibigay ng direksyon. So in that year also, in the PPAP in 2018, I believe also that all those workers who were called to the vineyard, they were not, kumbaga, even though they're imperfect, but nonetheless, I'm sure there's always the light, the beacon of light also shining in their hearts. And by the very fact that there are also other families shining out, no, in front of them or beside them as they work in the vineyard, they're also somehow influenced by that light. And later on, sila rin mismo, they also assume and get that light. Katulad ba ganito mga glow in the dark na to, they will glow out only no, in the darkness once they absorb light from outside. And the source of that light, of course, is nonetheless but our God Himself. Like the moon. Kumbaga, we see the moon at night, nagsashine yung moon natin, may full moon, may new moon, first quarter, last quarter, pero the moon is not a light in itself. I-reflect lang niya yung ilaw na galing sa araw no, in order to give us brightness no, in the night. So ganun din yung mga families. Kumbaga, even though there's darkness around us, they will always glow in the dark because there's always the light of Christ, the light and the example of different families and co-workers working with us. Kaya nga sinabi doon sa theme na pinili nilang passage at in that year, The people walking in darkness have seen a great light. On those living in the land of deep darkness, a light has dawned. So somehow, kahit na mukhang madilim, pero at the end, there will always still be the light that will accompany us. And personally, I don't so much believe that we have to wait, the light at the end of the tunnel, because I always believe when we speak of the light of Christ, the light of Christ is always with us in the tunnel. Though there's always light, kasi Christ never abandons his people. And then on the third year of our PPAP, the theme is about the vessels of God's grace. Because as we have spoken in the previous year, 2018, so we become light, not to other people, because God has given us that light in order to reflect it back, not to other families, to other people. And as such, absorbing that light of Christ, practically that light is also what we call a grace. And being absorbers of that grace of Christ, we become the vessels. So to become a vessel, we are completely open to God's will no matter what the cost. So we are willing to be used by God for whatever purpose He has in mind. And the accompaniment program continues within us as workers, and we could feel the grace that God has been pouring in us. So it's felt good that we need to empty our vessels and pour them also to others as we accompany other people too. So yun na nga, just like the vessels of God, so we also receive the grace. So and those graces are also meant to be shared. So as workers in the vineyard. And I'm sure a lot of you already know, already in the past and also in the present, you're doing this. Through your ministries, through your encounters with each other as prayer partners, as partners in the services of the families, you become also the channels of graces to other people. So much so that the family, being a vessel of God's grace, being a channel of God's grace, you become, quote unquote, a sacramental presence to other people. And that is very important because when we say sacramental presence, we become visible signs of an invisible reality. We become visible signs of the infinite grace of God to other people. And that is what we call a sacramental presence. So much so that when people would see you as a couple, as a husband, as a wife, as a mother, as a father, or even as individuals, as ministers in the church or in the community or in the country, they will always have that sense of hope and joy that they know that they will always find optimism, they will find greater faith, and they will find also and experience greater love from you because you become an instrument of grace, a vessel of grace, a presence of God's grace. And for this, the theme that was used during that time was, but we have this treasure in jars of clay to show that this all surpassing power is from God and not from us. And basing from this particular theme that was chosen, so we carry the treasure in jars of clay. So meaning to say, even as workers in the vineyard, even though we are vessels of grace, we have to take care also of our own selves because like jars of clay, marupok din tayo. We could also crack, we could also break. And we have seen a lot of people, a lot of couples, a lot of families, a lot of individuals, after some time that they have become vessels of grace because of sickness, because of old age, because of certain problems and calamities that have visited their families, they broke into pieces. And some of them pa nga, they broke each other. Yun ang challenge. Now we are vessels of grace, but we have to take care also of that vessel. We have to take care of our wife. We have to take care of our husband. We have to take care of our children. We have to take care of the people around us. Because being vessels of grace, yun na nga, marurupok pa rin tayo. And that is also a sign also na not because we are serving the family, we are serving the church or the community or the country, na para we are already immune from any pitfall or from any sin or from any mistake. We are not infallible. We could also commit wrong decisions or we could make wrong turns in our life. Pero despite that, we have to take care of these vessels because we are just but vessels of clay in front of God. Kaya nga, we ask the Lord to always keep us in peace. And at the same time, being vessels of grace, not because you are broken, para bang tapos ka na. Because just like one time there was a quotation, there was a person who was asking God, Lord, my heart is broken. No, I feel hopeless and I don't find any hope anymore. And what did God tell that person? Just give me the pieces and I will join them together. So ganun din tayo. Even though our vessels sometimes would crack, would break, or sometimes would just be taken for granted, pero God is always willing to glue it back together, to make it always a vessel of wonderful grace, no, for other people. And then in the year 2020, no, that is, yeah, this year, in the fourth year, tama, no? Yeah. So we are now called, no, to a greater mission. And that is, it was declared, no, 2020 to be the Amoris Laetitia family year. No, and because of this, we took as a theme, no, last year, or rather this year, up to this year, no, called to sow seeds, and God will do the rest. That is based from Amoris Laetitia 200, because we all believe that our mission is so clear that after 4 years in this program, the mission of accompaniment that Pope Francis taught us through his teachings in Amoris Laetitia is instilled in our hearts. Because we know very well that this Amoris Laetitia family year was declared by Pope Francis, no, in order, first of all, to celebrate the 5 years no, anniversary of Amoris Laetitia as one of the Magna Carta about family life. And at the same time, among the things that also Pope Francis is asking from us is that the couples should understand that their married life is always a vocation. Meaning to say, it's a calling, no, from God Himself, that people do not just get married just for the sake of loving each other or signing a contract, but more than that, because it is a calling. Just as in the first year of our PPAP, we were all called to share in that mission. So here in this fourth year, we are asked to really to level up, know our mission, that we don't just work, we don't just remain in the crisis, being the glow in the dark, tapos nagiging lang vessels of grace. Pero what we need now is that it's about time that we also do our turn, no, in doing and spreading the mission of the Lord. Now that we have been loved, we have been chosen, we have been taken care of, we have been loved and being nourished by the Lord continually. So the logical mission there is that we continually also share this goodness of God, no, to other people. That's why Pope Francis, in his Amoris Laetitia family year, this year, no, he presented 10 modules, no, for us to follow. And I'm sure some of you are following the modules, no, given to us and suggested to us by the Pope, no, not just a reading of the document, but also a reflection and a journaling, no, of this mission. And I congratulate those who have joined, no, in these sessions, because it is also a moment for us, no, to really deepen, no, our vocation. And at the same time, another reason for this Amoris Laetitia family year is that we as workers, no, as parents, we also begin to encourage also the next generation. That is, we sow the seed of goodness and kindness and family life, no, to our children. Kasi the family life, the family vocation will not end with us. Kumbaga, may next generation yan. And it is so wonderful if at the end, the values that you will teach your children, they will really absorb it and they will pass it from the next generation to the next. Just as when you got married, one of the blessings that we ask from the Lord, no, during the marriage rite is that may you see your children's children, no, in your old age. Meaning to say, may mapagpapasahan ka, hindi lang ng kayamanan mo, hindi lang kumbaga ng mga ari-arian ninyo, pero mapapasahan mo talaga ng pamilya mo at ng pag-ibig nyo. And as a matter of fact, just today, no, for example, I was talking, no, with a couple, medyo sumasama yung loob, no, ng isang partner doon. Bakit? Kasi may favoritism daw yung kanyang parents. Kasi dahil babae siya, hindi niya dala yung apelido ng pamilya, so tinitake for granted siya, no, ng tatay niya. No, kasi syempre apelido niya yung asawa niya, obviously. Pero yung tatay hindi niya maintindihan. Kumbaga, gusto pa rin ng tatay, dapat apelido mo apelyido ng pamilya ang dadalhin mo. Kaya mas may favorite siya dun sa mga apo niya sa anak niyang lalaki. And that is not good. Kasi you cannot really change that tradition. No, kung babae yung anak mo, talaga siyempre pag nag-asawa yun, hindi na apelyido ng pamilya niya ang dadalhin niya, pero pamilya na nung magiging asawa niya. So yung mga ganyang mga traditions which sometimes disrupts and destroys really the flow in the family. And that is indeed the challenge that we had last year, and it's still continuing up to this year kasi nga it's the whole year until June next year, itong Amoris Laetitia family year, na sana nga we continually sow the seed and God will do the rest. Because we know very well, it is God who makes the seeds grow, at basta importante, magtasik lang tayo ng kabutihan. It is God who will bear the fruit of our labor. Kaya yun ang challenge sa atin to continue that journey. Now for this year, and because of that, ito nga yung sowing the seed, that we now put on through our live media, yung PPAP Live that we now try to promote. Now we are now in the year 5 of our PPAP. And this year, 2021, the theme that we have chosen is Remain in Me. So pray, love, and serve. So God has been faithful and has truly blessed us now that we are on our 5th year. So our mission will continue with trials along the way. That is why we need to remain in the Lord forever. So through our fervent prayers and love for one another, serving would come naturally. And all these graces will only come from God. And why did I suggest this? And I think it's also the theme for this year. Kasi unang-una, there are 3 things here that I would like to present here. So first, yung in general, remain in me. Because now that we have started the mission, all of us have been given that vocation, and most of you, or if not all, are already married in the church, married with the grace of God. So the life of Christ is already in each and every one of you. So the challenge now, with all these trials that we continually face in our family life, is to really remain faithful in the Lord. Like the branches and the vine, we always get our nourishment from the main tree, and that is from God Himself. And how do we remain faithful to this goodness of Christ? First of all, through our baptismal vocation. Kaya nga 3 points ito. Kasi yung pray, based from the baptismal vocation that we have, would always speak out about the priestly life of our vocation. Because remember, when we were baptized, we became we were configured in the life of Christ as priests, prophets, and kings. Kung sa babae, yung mga may babae, so to be the priestess, the prophetess, and the queens, in Christ. So as priests and priestesses, in our families, one of the things that we could do is remain in prayer. Because as priests, we are meant to offer sacrifices. We are invited to pray for our families, for other families, and other people who are in need. We become intercessors. We become bridges. And that is the role of the priest or the priestess, to be able to bring other people close to God and to make that bridge between God and man. So that is the role of the priest. And of course, speaking of the priest, it implies also a lot of sacrifice. And sacrifice means to really be able to go out from our comfort zone and to always be an instrument where we could bring other people really closer to a greater love for God. Tapos secondly, yung love naman, it will speak about being prophets or prophetesses in our baptismal vocation as couples. And what do you mean by that? Because as prophets and prophetesses, sabi natin, all of us are invited to preach the message that God is giving us. So all of us are preachers. So hindi lang pare ang nagtuturo. Hindi lang kumbaga ang mga lectors and commentators nagpapahayag ng salita ng Diyos. Pero the most important way wherein you proclaim the word of God and the love of God and the mercy of God is through your witnessing of love and compassion. Mahalaga po yan. Kasi especially now during this pandemic season, a lot of people would like to isolate themselves kasi nasanay na sila na magsarili during this more than 1.5 years no, ng lockdown natin. Maraming mga kabataan na talagang ayaw nang lumabas, no, hindi na sumusunod kasi nasanay na silang gusto nila sa loob na lang sila ng bahay. So, nalilimutan na nila no, na dahil meron pa silang kasama sa bahay. So itong preaching po natin no, would always come no, through our witnessing. How many times no, may mga couples na talagang nakikipag-away na sa asawa nila, sa mga anak nila, they become irritated no, to each other. And I think epekto yan ng mga mental health issues, mga depression na nangyayari during this pandemic season. So yan, dyan natin ipapakita what do we preach no, to other people no, and especially to our own families. Na we have to be careful also na hinay-hinay din tayo sapagkat there are also some families, some couples na talagang nade-depress din. Kasi mga iba nawala na ng trabaho, they don't know how to survive, they don't know how to support their families anymore. So, ganun din, no, mga iba nagwawala na. And even some people pa nga, no, yun na nga, they resort to mga to self-pleasure and so on, sapagkat yun nga, nagsasarili na lang sila. They forget na may asawa sila, na meron silang mga anak, para bang as if by allowing pornography no, to enter their families, para bang gamitan na lang no, ng tao. Gamitan na lang no, ng sabihin natin ng iba for my own selfish needs. And that is not being a prophet or a prophetess, but rather being a prophet and prophetess, no, we'd always do it through a life of service. Kaya nga, di ba nga sinabi misa ni St. Francis of Assisi, no, you preach the word of God, no, pero you use words only if necessary. Kumbaga, it's more on the action. Kaya nga, saludo rin tayo sa lahat ng mga couples, sa mga mag-asawa, na talagang mga pamilya, they continually serve each other, they really naggumagawa pa rin activities together, they pray together, they cook together, they still eat together, kahit na sinasabi ng ibang mga protocols na don't eat together kasi magkapahawahan kayo, no, kuminsan mahirap din yung ganun kasi they don't see anymore really the value na kayo-kayo rin naman magkakasama sa bahay. At lalo especially for those who are challenged dahil may nagkasakit sa bahay, no, yun ang pinaka-challenging part or yung mga nawawalan no, ng mahal sa buhay. And of course, the third part of this configuration, so besides being priests, prophets, is to become kings or queens no, to other people. And that is the service. Na tayo rin as priests, prophets, and kings, as married couples, hindi lang tayo nananatili sa sarili nating pamilya. Just as you were called not to work in the vineyard, we are continually called to assist other families. And I really congratulate a lot of you, or if not all of you, no, in every other families, talagang they go out of their way no, to be able to evangelize other families. May iba talagang gumagawa ng mga programs no, to spread devotion no, to our Blessed Mother, devotion to the Eucharist, no, devotion no, to the saints, kila Saint Joseph, or sa mga iba naman, they really go out no, to para magbigay ng mga ayuda, mag-assist sa mga bakuna, no, na talagang para bakit? They go out of their way. Bakit? Kasi they want to save families. They want to save other people. Ako, puring-puri ako sa mga riders, no, yung mga nagde-deliver. Mga pamilyado yan, yung mga tao niya, yung mga lalaki niya, kung mga babae pa nga nagde-deliver, talagang they go out of their way, yung mga frontliners natin. Mga pamilyado yan, yung mga nasa ospital, whenever I go also for sick calls. No, kung ako, ingat na ingat ako pag dumadalaw sa mga ospital, sa mga pasyente, much more sila na laging nandoon, kasabay nila ang pasyente. No, bakit? Kasi they really live up to that vocation. We have come here to serve so that others may live. At ano yung dumadaloy sa mga ugat nila na nagbibigay buhay? It is the love of the Lord that they have received in their baptism, that they were configured no, in the love of Christ to become priests, prophets, and kings. And later on, as married couples, they also share and live up that particular priesthood. Kaya nga minsan nabanggit ko, kung ang meron tayo mga pare, kami, mga ordained ministers, we are called the ministerial priesthood. No? Because the ministry given to us in the sacrament of holy orders, I believe, and hindi to dogmatical teaching, this was also part of my reflection and research, there's also what we call the matrimonial priesthood. Kung merong ministerial priesthood, meron ding matrimonial priesthood. Kasi kayo rin, as husband and wife, you are all priests, priestesses, prophets, prophetess, and kings and queens in this world. Because in the sacrament of baptism, you were also configured like your configuration when you were baptized. Kaya nga, the aspect of remaining in the Lord is to pray, to love, and serve. And that is our matrimonial priesthood in living the life with God. Kaya nga, the theme, scriptural theme that we have chosen is, I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. And apart from me, you can do nothing. So this is just an introduction, to this theme. So maraming salamat po, sa inyo lahat.
Maraming salamat po, Father Chris. Palakpakan po natin si Father Chris kahit na virtual.
PPAP